Welcome to the Mick and Pat Show.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually not the Mick and Pat Show. This is, as you can probably tell if you can read, the first episode of our new series called Dog-Eared Dialogue. Dog-Eared Dialogue is a play on the term for when you fold the corner of a good book to save your spot so you can come back to it the next time you can sit down. And with all that Pat and I have been talking about our favorite books, we decided to, make it a recurring series to give these books their due diligence. And so this won't be as much of a review because these episodes will be, essentially whenever we have a book that we've both read and both enjoyed, we're going to give it the respect it deserves and do a full kind of breakdown and synopsis of the book, hitting on essentially introduction of the book and its author and a brief synopsis that's spoiler free. So that way you can decide if you haven't listened to the book. I say listen because that's usually what I do now. If you haven't listened to the book on Audible or haven't read the book yet, it gives you a chance to hear a little bit about it and then decide if you want to give it a shot or not. So after that, we're going to go into what we called a character corner, where Pat's going to explain kind of essentially who the main characters of a story are, or perhaps the most pivotal sub-characters. Then I'll take us on over to the key points and themes of a book, and then we'll both pretty much wrap it up with our takeaways from the novel. And going forward, if you want to provide your own feedback on the book, if you've read it, and have kind of looked at our reading list of recommendations, we'd like to share your thoughts. So whether that's you send us a voicemail, send us an email, reach out to us on socials, whatever it may be, we'll kind of let everybody know how our listeners feel about the book. And then finally with that, we'll kind of wrap up our thoughts in a nice little sweet bow. And maybe if we have a book on the horizon, we'll allude to which one we'll read next or do a review of next. But again, this won't be like a serial like brews and reviews where we try to crank them out, 2 to 4 a month. This is more of a as we find that good book, that dog-eared novel, that romantic 50 Shades of Grey novella, we're going to give it the good due diligence it deserves, and bring a good diatribe about it to those of you who are also like us and nerds and got, bullied for reading a book. Dude, did you ever see, gosh, I can't remember his name now. Julian, he was a YouTuber, made a bunch of music videos. Julian.
The Milk guy. Milk.
Yeah. Yeah. And he did one called I'm Reading a Book.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's excellent. It's just like his girlfriend keeps interrupting him to do like things most men want to do. And he just keeps on yelling at her, I'm reading a book, girl. I'm reading a book. Don't you ever talk to me when I'm reading a book, girl. So I loved it, bro. I thought that was always so funny. Anyways, Pat, today's book, man, you just finished it. Not what, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, a week or two ago. We're hitting, we're just coming out with a heavy, we've been talking about it on the show too for a little while, but is Cormac McCarthy's BloodMeridian, or The Evening Redness in the West. And you read this book a couple months ago, and then you've been talking about it some, so it piqued my interest, and I had to pick it up. And I've heard about Cormac McCarthy for a long time. I really haven't read any of his stuff, but like I just heard about him for a long time. I know of No Country for Old Men, and so I had to give this one a shot, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Because I know
or it did. like
it left you empty inside.
I don't know,
hollowed.
But it definitely was worth my time for sure.
Yeah. This book was pretty pivotal and impactful to me just because I never read a book like it, listened to a book like it. And I think Richard Poe is the narrator, of course, on the audiobook version is just absolute all-star in the way he voices the characters and provides a just weight to the book. Like just the way he is reading and enunciating the scenes. Like you could tell it's just like, good God, this is awful. Like this is so heavy. And the imagery is so like every word he says is just another image in your mind. But with that, we got some American primitivism in the background. So if you like this music, go ahead and give it a listen to and check it out. There's some really great playlists out there. But figure it'd be fitting to have some acoustic, primitive lyrical or lyricless music in the background while we examine what is often seen as and referred to as the great American book or the great American novel, because it is a very transparent examination of the West. BloodMeridian, we're getting into it, folks. BloodMeridian, or The Evening Redness in the West by Cormac McCarthy. It was written in 1985 and it is known as an epic historical novel. I think I've described it to people as like the Odyssey or Iliad through the lenses of just one of Odysseus's crewmates. And if they all were like just way more depraved, like if there was no honor, no integrity, you know what I mean? It's been described genre wise as a Western or anti-Western. And much of that is because it does a rather accurate portrayal to the violence and anti-hero or anti-heroics of those who, were actually like historical figures or living in the West, especially down towards the border. And there is no glorification of anyone, whether Native Americans, whether Mexican army or American army or straight up outlaw or cowboy. No one is above reproach in this novel. It's McCarthy's fifth book. As Pat said, he wrote some other really popular bangers that you may have seen the movie adaptations of. No Country for Old Men and The Road, two of his most popular stories. For those of you who were educated and readers and learned how to read in school, it's 351 pages. But if you're like us and smooth-brained and love to just listen to narration, it's narrated by the great Richard Poe. A lot of people see this as McCarthy's magnum opus, his pivotal, most excellent piece of work. Some have said it is the most horrifying book of the last century, the 20th century, at least in regards to fiction. That was David Foster Wallace, who, rest in peace, taken too early. He was also a great American author. The book has been described as close to history as novels generally can get. It is based off of the actual writings of Samuel Chamberlain, who wrote a memoir known as My Confession, The Recollections of a Rogue. And these are essentially because there's no real evidence to the counterpoint, and because Samuel Chamberlain doesn't use a lot of checkable factual references in his memoir, there's no way to really say if it was true or not. But what he does discuss is like very easily to verify, as well as like the existence of specific individuals such as John Joel Glanton, the leader of the Glanton Gang himself, as well as some of the other members that Chamberlain discusses and alludes to, such as Judge Holden. I can't remember his first name.
I don't know if he has a first name.
He's got a first name, something Holden. But anyways, that memoir is rather short. It was written sometime in the 1800s after Chamberlain's time riding with the gang in 1849 and 1850. And it is the basis, and the rumors and stories of the Glanton Gang is the basis for McCarthy's novel here, which, Pat, if you're ready, go ahead and give us a brief non-spoiler summary so we can set the stage.
Yes, I was looking for the full. I don't know if you did. I think it's just Judge Holden.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just Judge Holden. But yeah, so this book is set in the 1850, circa 1850, pre-Civil War, and what's going on at that time is the Mexican-American War is just kind of starting to wrap up down on the Mexico-Texas border. And this book kicks off with a runaway teenager who is he's out to prove himself in the world, but you can tell he's not sure what's really going on around him, and he runs into a couple different characters along the way in the beginning of this book, but then ends up finding himself in a unofficial band of soldiers who have decided to just continue to wage the Mexican-American War, even though it's kind of over. They're just like, they decided it wasn't over, so they're going to keep on it. And he's young, early teenager at this point, and he finds himself in this group of really, even this group of guys are technically would be outlaws in their own way. And he goes on some raids with them and eventually finds himself in another gang, a totally different gang of murderous scalp hunters. And he's our main character in this story, and throughout the book we see kind of his development, and we see the relationships he makes with each of these characters, and these characters build throughout, and there's one guy who's really also the main guy, and that's the judge. And so without getting too much into the story, we're following the story of a kid in the West and how he gets shaped by ultimately this guy, the judge.
Smoke break.
Smoke break.
Hey, Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you can put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations, complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, 0 fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, BloodMeridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick and Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution. Yeah, and to, I would say, dissolute anyone's usual stereotypes of the West, it is more about I would say, like, and not spoiling anything, the kid is our vehicle And I would think that just about any reader is as innocent as the kid is going into the gang. And the judge is very much a tempter of tempting with philosophy and well-reasoned arguments to lead men like the kid down a darker path. And so it's not like we're not talking about like Good Will Hunting. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the judge is Robin Williams, like, I will help you discern what is right and wrong. Right. So with that, we will be getting into spoilers. So just so everyone knows, that's our spoiler-free kind of summary of the novel, there to just let people know if it would be something they're interested in. If you're not really interested into it, then perhaps, this kind of breakdown of its key points, themes, and, the conflicts amongst its characters is enough for you to, fancy yourself with some philosophy and then move on. But I really, want people to understand that this series already is a recommendation of the book. Like, if we're going to make these episodes, it's us saying, hey, this is a great book, you should read it. Well, I would say you should listen to it because it is a very hard read due to the way it's written. I don't know if you know this, Pat, but there's no punctuation in the book other than periods. And there's the very powerful, a lot of people call it the biblical and, because it's just that when a sentence should end, and then this, and this, and this. And it just is like, it's written in a way that I think makes sense, like especially narrated. It doesn't sound run on or long. And when something's narrated well, you don't look for the quotes.
I would use that excuse in high school to my teachers. My English teachers would be like, you can't write this way. And I'd be like, Hemingway wrote this way. And they'd be like, they would just roll their eyes and be like, that's because he's Hemingway. Go do it the right way. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's how I tried to do it. It didn't get away with it. Didn't work for me.
Didn't work too well for you, bro. One time I straight up copy pasted the script from an episode of Samurai Jack and just changed the names and changed the format from script to story. And I got an A+ on like a paper I had to write for creative writing.
Oh, nice.
It was awesome. Yep. I was really happy my English teacher had not watched an episode of Samurai Jack. But anyways, Pat, if you wouldn't mind embarking us on this journey
of who's in this story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was saying, there's this kid who is a runaway, but we don't know his name ever. He's just the kid.
The kid.
And so all these characters have names, and we'll say their names at the beginning, and we're going to try to stick to kind of referring to them almost as their titles so that we don't get confused. But the kid's kind of an easy one because he is just the kid. And he was born in Tennessee, but it's funny because at the beginning of the book, it says that he's wearing like stuff that's in vogue in the East Coast.
Oh, sure.
And so I feel like he's found himself kind of headed out west from Tennessee, but now I feel like he's already trying to be a gangster. Like he's just like wearing like these.
He's already trying to dress like a man.
Yeah, he's trying to dress like a man, try to dress like the in thing, but then he found himself he just went the wrong direction for it, and kind of he even has this like New Yorker chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Like street kid vibe.
Yeah, I mean, he's not narrated in an annoying accent, but like I could easily read his stuff like, what do you want, Duck?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the... Yeah. I'm trying to think of the classic cartoon character, like not Bugs Bunny, but kind of Bugs Bunny-ish, of like orneriness.
Yeah, for sure. And so this is definitely the character that has the most development throughout the text, I think, because we're going to work our way through development of these characters too, or the undevelopment of some of them, but he definitely has the biggest story arc. He is the protagonist, if you could call him that.
I would say, the vehicle.
Yeah, the vehicle. You gotta call him the vehicle.
You occupy his mind.
Yeah, because he's pulling you through the story.
But he is certainly not a good person.
Right. And I think that he maybe parts of him want to be. but he's just not.
Oh yeah,
but he's just
for sure.
not. Mm-hmm.
I think that's, across several characters, we see them almost make a moment of doing the right thing or being good.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, just so you can answer it, how much time do we spend from the perspective of the kid versus other characters in the book, just so readers and people know if they haven't listened to the book yet?
I'd probably say like 60%.
I might even go higher.
Yeah, higher.
From the point of a third person view of like understanding the story.
Yeah, because there's a couple times when it totally leaves the kid, or the kid's not in the story for a little bit, but then I'd say like 60 to 80% is probably higher than that. 80% is where like you're seeing through his eyes or hearing a story he's being told to get that. And it mentions at the beginning that he is just kind of like ready for mindless violence, and he finds himself in a gang, which is the worst place for someone like this to be, because it just unleashes his
someone who already is like thinking to be a man I should be violent, and immediately be brought into the most liberally restrained group of men.
I forget the exact quote, but in his first kill, it says something along the lines of like, the trigger broke, the man fell, as if he'd done it 100 times. Like, it was just like natural to him. It wasn't like this, oh my God, I'm changed now. It's like, I just, like, he did that action, was just doing the thing he was actually, just what he was.
And he's young too, because we see he struggles to get alcohol.
Right.
Like, for a long time in the novel. It's until he has the gang kind of getting the booze for him wherever they go.
Right.
Or people just like, shit, this kid's one of them crazy kids who thinks he's a gunfighter and he might kill me if I don't give him a beer, because that's how ignorant he is of the way the world works.
And I'd forgotten about that, because at the beginning of it, I thought he was just like an alcoholic. Like I didn't realize just how young he was. Yeah. I thought that it was
like to be in the West in 1840 and someone's like, you might be a little young to drink. You're young.
Right. So I thought he was just like a full blown alcoholic. That's why they weren't serving him. But it probably was because he was just so young.
But then he murders a man right there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so as we go into these themes and more of the story with the characters, he develops his, I think he never loses his conscience. Not that I'd say he's not a good man, but he never loses his conscience in that, like, along the way, he really has this, he does have this guy we'll talk about in a second, the priest on one shoulder and the judge on the other. Kind of like talking in his ear, and he's like swayed to both sides, and has internal struggle towards making the decisions
for sure
at certain times, in comparison to other characters who just are. There's no like flow chart of a conscience inside of them making decisions.
I think we see it with some.
Yeah, we do.
You know what I mean? Like where we see them get that glimmer of a conscience, that glimmer of a code.
I'd say, I'm not saying there's none of them, but there are a couple in this who don't have one. Yeah. They're just, that doesn't exist. Because he does do acts and help people in ways and show mercy in some ways throughout that, like, other people wouldn't. And
I would say at that point, like, to the reader, the times where their kid debates mercy or shows help is almost as like offensive in contrast as the violence is offensive in like unexpected. Like as the reader, you'd be like, what, really? You're not going to kill this guy? Like you're going to choose this guy as the one you spare?
Right.
This guy's already dying. Why not end his suffering?
Mm-hmm.
And like you hear how many people the kid puts down, how many he shoots, how many he clubs, whatever it is, you know, how many he might kill and doesn't even care to see if they're dead or just injured.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when he shows mercy, it's almost offensive. Like it's almost a protest, I think, to the reader to hear him be merciful or debate the choice of mercy, because you're like, you know, very many like more towards the end of the book, right, where you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Pull the trigger.
Right.
And all that said, I just think like that is a very weird part of like this book is like there's the shock of the violence, but then there's also the shock of like, damn, this bad man's really going to choose right now to be conscious and make a moral choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the kid, but you know what I'm saying?
For sure. No, for sure. All right. The next guy we're going to talk about is Captain Glanton. And he's Glanton. We're also going to call him the captain, but we'll also say Glanton throughout this. But he's, like you said earlier, that based off of someone who actually lived, and a fictionalized version. And he's the leader of the gang, but is he? Maybe also too in some aspects, because I'd maybe argue that the judge has him so entangled into evil.
Let him think he's in charge.
The judge doesn't he doesn't actually even need to let him think he's in charge. He can be in charge because he will do what the judge wanted. Yeah. He will do like as the commander's intent will be done, and the judge can just sit back and sit second chair while Glanton just does the things that the judge was like has corrupted his mind into ultimately.
I saw a footnote on something that I think it was Reddit where someone briefly said it, and they're like, you know, I think it's fair to say, Pat, that you and I read this, like there's a lot of debatably anti-Christian conjecture, and not that like Christianity is bad or Christians are bad, but just like there's parts in this book where it's like, here is a twist of this biblical story. Here is a perversion of this word of God. And then there's also, you know, the decay of Christianity. And I think like I saw this and it really stuck out to me, but someone was like, Glanton is really kind of like any one of the judges or kings out of the book of Judges or the book of Kings. That just is like doing the thing. Everyone's listening to him. But he's really just operating under what God tells him to do. And the judge is God. You know, and like I was like, well, I kind of see that. Right. You know, it doesn't need, like the judge doesn't need to show he's in charge of Glanton, because everyone's looking to Glanton because he's the judge's messenger, the judge's, you know, prophet or whatever, in an odd way. Right.
Right. You know, I think that's right on with this character, because there's times throughout it where, it's just the judge isn't even there or really doesn't even do any of the work, but he's just
kind of almost forget about him a couple times.
Yeah.
Because he's just so in the background.
Yeah. Yep. Because his purpose is being obtained through this guy and this gang. And so Glanton, he's ruthless, bloodshed guy, scalp hunter. And the interesting piece of this too is I was looking up that, you know, because we hear about scalping and this thing that was done in the West, and there always wants to be some argument about who started scalping or whatever. You know, it's like everyone's like the French started it, not the Indians, and I'm like,
the book opens up with that epitaph.
Oh yeah,
that has been around since possibly the dawn of man.
Right. It's been like if you're going biblical too, it's like, you know,
give me them skins.
Yeah. Like there's
scalp the cock.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Bro, what is that? 1,000 foreskins is 1,000 cock scalps.
Yeah, it's brutal, and it's and then showing up with a head in a bag and these things, and so in the mid 1830s to the 1850s in Mexico, there really was scalp hunters, not just so people were scalping all around. It was a thing to show someone was dead, show how many people you'd killed, show how good of a warrior you were, whatever it was. But it was a method by which to get paid at this time in Mexico. Specifically, Mexican government wanted
black-haired scalps, dude.
Scalps of the Apache Indians to prove that they were dead. And I was reading this little article that that there was also lots and many accounts Apaches bringing in other Apache scalps.
Oh yeah,
like it was like
to get some money.
Yeah, and it was so, this within the tribe, this group versus this group, and it's like the Mexican government wants this other group gone, and so one group's other family's gonna go take them out or whatever. So it kind of, what I'm getting at is, doesn't matter who done it or who started it, they were all doing it. Everybody was doing this thing, and it was but it really was a thing at the time. This isn't just like a
it's not gratuitous for gratuity.
Yeah, exactly. So this was the way that it went, and mentions in this article too that they did bring their ears as well.
Tobin with his, right? He had the necklace of ears.
It was actually the what's his name? Bath Cat.
Had the thing of ears.
Yeah. So
what a awful name.
Really weird guy.
Bath Cat, dude. That is such a nasty name.
And so Bath Cat was one of the characters, but that had a necklace of ears, and the that brings me to another character I want to talk about, which was Brown.
Hold on, wait, before you get there.
Yeah.
This thought just came to me.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to like give readers or listeners of the podcast and let them argue with us about who we see it playing the character. Because for those who don't know, the movie's been picked up by several times the book's been picked up several times to be made a movie, but apparently Regency Pictures is finally doing it, and it's really going to happen. And it was announced in April 2023 that it's really going to be a movie now. And there is like power behind the name. And so with that, I think we should start saying with these characters, as you describe them to us and give a picture of them to the reader, who they are, kind of the things they do, giving them an idea of who you think could play them. And I would say this, like for the kid, I used to think
Matthew Roderick when he was young.
Matthew Roderick?
Broderick. He's the
maybe.
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say he's a little too gentle faced. I would say like young Dave Franco. Like Dave Franco when he was still actually like in his 20s. He's short. He
kind of has a mean face.
He's kind of got a little bit of a meaner looking face when he's like, not made pretty boy. But nowadays for kid actors, I do think that like someone who could really kind of fit the bill for this young youth teenager and do it pretty well is the actor who played Joffrey in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah,
because they like you give him like you just make him look dirty and you give him like that like a kind of like a dirty black brown hair. He's still a youthful looking young man. His name's Jack Gleason, I think, or something. Maybe not Jack Gleason. I feel like that's incorrect. But I could see him being like just this, crooked, smiled looking, mean as piss kid, and like, but there's something about him that's still like, as a viewer, you're like, man, this kid wouldn't be so bad if he got his act straight. Like he might be redeemed. So I see him as that. And then for the captain, I've always pictured the captain as being pretty much just, and I think he kind of already played the character in The Revenant, but Tom Hardy.
Oh yeah,
like I could see Tom Hardy just being this menace, this evil. But what do you think? Is there anyone that you see that you have in mind who could be these
for Glanton
people? Or the kid even?
Yeah, for them, I think those are good ones. I like those ones. Yeah, because Glanton is this guy who also goes and ends up I think his demise, he ends up going kind of crazy. And I think that, and we'll get into later on more thoughts about this, we keep referring to the judge, but like, I think he's been completely, fully like enveloped by the judge. Like the cancer has spread all the way just to like, unto like, to just the, to throughout his entire psyche. And he's just, which is, I think the way that
I like that. I like the way you said that. Cancer spread. Dude.
Yeah.
It's all through him. Mm-hmm. There's not any ounce of him left to be redeemed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's just gone. And he implodes himself in that way. But another character that I want to talk about we're not going to go through all the characters of the gang, but this guy, Brown, we're going to talk about him because he is, I think he's a good depiction of kind of like who this gang was of people. And Brown is just a violent deputy in the gang. He wears a necklace of like 100 human ears on it of people he's killed.
He's also got an ear necklace.
So he comes to wear the necklace and then starts to add to it. Yeah. So he takes Bathcat. When Bathcat dies, he takes the necklace and starts adding to it. Mm-hmm. But it's just like this. He's got this nasty, crusty necklace around his body, and he's one of the only characters who gets like his own chapter, where he ends up in jail, and there's a young guard there, and he just totally deceives the guard about if he lets him out, they'll split the money that's buried out in the desert. They get out in the desert, and Brown just kills him. It's like just this. The guy didn't even see it coming, but and he's just a murdering criminal, and all these guys in the gang are, these guys can go full Anakin on the Sand People Village. They can go in there, wreck the whole thing.
They want to. It's not that they can't. Yeah. It's like they look for it.
Right. And so,
there's no meaningness to it. You know what I mean? It's like none of them operate on a path of vengeance. Mm-hmm. It's about making coin and continue and like using that coin to make more coin.
Yeah, and like just so they can go keep doing it. Like there's not even there's no exit plan, exit strategy. It's just a revolving door of kill somebody, get money, drink the whiskey, buy the woman, kill people,
get some nice threads.
Money. Yep. And him and another guy, Tobin, meet their end at the end of a rope, as that goes for lots of, Wild West gangsters.
Which even that is like, I don't know. There's just something about that is like when we get Brown's death, even though he's not like such a big character in the story, there's just something about it that like makes the judge bigger. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like Brown's a bad man, but I mean, he could still be hung just like anyone else. Mm-hmm. And like, there's something about him just hanging off, like such a menial, the same as every other criminal death. And then like this idea of the judge's character, which, I don't want to spoil it because I know you're getting to him, but it's just like, it's for some reason that death to me made it so much more like made the judge seem so much bigger.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree because also the flip late in the book when he kind of comes back and re-encounters the judge, he goes from like this really powerful guy because of how violent he is to at the feet of the judge just a dog.
Yep, just subservient.
Yeah, just scared and powerless. And so
wait, hold on before we move on.
Yeah, for him.
Yeah, who do you see who could play Brown?
Oh man. He's probably too old now, but the guy from The Patriot whose little ginger kid dies. He, the one who
I don't remember.
makes the one who makes the joke about eating dogs and has a laugh. Like,
oh yeah,
you know that guy.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I can see that.
Like the long greasy hair, kind of like in a round.
He was in Pirates of the Caribbean too as someone.
Yeah,
I could see that. I personally, when I hear that character, I think of Josh Brolin when he was playing the main antagonist in what was the remake with him in it? Oh gosh, why am I spacing out? Josh Brolin. I just watched it recently, and it was him and Jeff Bridges in the remake of a John Wayne Western.
Oh, was he in Rooster Cogburn?
Yeah, Rooster Cogburn.
What's the Rooster Cogburn? But the True Grit.
True Grit, yeah. And Josh Brolin is the main antagonist in it, and like you don't even. It's hard to even recognize him as Josh Brolin. Like that's how ugly and mean looking he looks and how dumb he looks. And I could just see him being a good Brown.
All right. I like it. Pulling out a name I was going to use later, but hey, now he might be played out as the overlord of all evil.
He's been Thanos too much.
Yeah. Even though I think if he hadn't done that, he'd fit towards the end there. But, all right. Next guy we were talking about is Tobin, the priest. I don't think they tell us how this guy even ended up in the gang. Like he was a priest, and then he wasn't, and then he was in a gang, and then the judge showed up in the gang also, but he was in the gang before the judge, and so it doesn't. I wish we got some origin on how he came to find himself there, but we don't know. We just know that this man of God, who kind of still likes to quote some, chapter and verse, also is in a murdering gang of scalp hunters. And while he is in this rotten gang, he probably is the most moral, upstanding person who does have a conscience and who's also, I really see him as the classic example of the angel and the devil on the shoulders of somebody whispering in like someone's ear. He is, for the kid, he's the angel on the shoulder.
Like the last whisper of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he is the priest. It turns out later in the book that we find out he wasn't even actually a priest all the way. He just was like he was just kind of like an associate to the priest or whatever. So, and we don't know how he ended up with the group, but and we don't know we know how all the other characters like meet their demise, but we don't know about his. He's just gone. Yeah.
And that's, that was something originally I was going to touch on it as a theme, but I just felt like there was better themes to put our time on. But the ambiguity and deceitfulness of the novel. There's the unreliable narrator, in which is often when the judge is retelling a story. But there's also the unreliable narrator in which, like Tobin at one point, is retelling a grandiose story, and no one ever else talks about that story. But we just have to take Tobin's word at like this, borderline divine intervention at the hands of the judge. That it seems like, like you hear this story and it's like, there's no fucking way. Like there's no way that happened. But all that said, like the fate of Tobin, the priest, the fate of Brown at one point is like very ambiguous. And then it's almost like if the kid hadn't seen him hanged, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have thought he had died another way.
Right.
So there's just like things like that throughout the novel there's like the kind of ambiguity and like unreliable narrator. And like all you can do is hope that Toadvine got it found somewhere to like at least do some good with what little life he had left, But Who do you see as being the priest, being Tobin?
Well, here's because I think a little theory about him. Like, I can't tell if we talked about this on the last podcast or after we'd stopped recording. So I'll just say it again. But I wonder if the priest was aware of how much he had let the judge into his life. Like like he knew what was good in the world, but he also knew that he had fallen to it. And so he was just his only good act he could do with his life at this point was to just try to push the kid in the right direction. And he was like, had some sort of self-awareness as maybe a man of the cloth would have of introspection on his life, to know about the thorns in his side or the things that he's fallen to or the things in his life that are messed up, but to know what is good and right and just to try to push someone else towards it a little bit. And so
I think he's a moth caught in the lamplight, and only at the end of the novel do we see him break free of it.
Right.
And realize like it's too late. His wings are burnt. He's been dinging his head against the wall or the glass, and he knows he ain't got long for this world. And he's begging the kid to snuff out that fire, that tempting, light that is the judge. And it's just one of those things that, like, I think you're right, bro. I think he was enraptured by the judge, totally enraptured for some time, and somehow the kid, and maybe the kid's not complete depravity, but like times where he shows a little bit of morality is what snaps Tobin out of it. I don't know.
Because I agree, and I think the person who could play this well would maybe be Ben Foster.
You think he's not? You think he's old enough?
Ben Foster?
Yeah,
I think he probably is now. I think he's probably pushing 50s. Well, how old is Ben Foster?
I've also seen people say, is it Chris Pine that is with Ben Foster in Hell or High Water? Or is it's the other Pine brother? Let me see.
Yeah, no, he is. Yeah.
It's Chris Pine,
Chris Pine,
right?
yeah.
I think I've heard people say Chris Pine's like now old enough to be Glanton. And I was like, I could see that. Dude, I could also see Ben Foster being Glanton because I've seen him be such a bad dude in 3:10 to Yuma.
Right. That's what I mean with Ben Foster as the priest. Because but have you seen Ben Foster? You saw Ben Foster in Lone Survivor?
I did. He was great.
Like, he's just this like
great
when he died, you were like, that is a good man dying.
Yeah.
That's a good man dying. So like he could, and so because of like the 3:10 to Yuma guy, he can be, and the that good man dying that he can be. I feel like he could play this like spectrum that would just confuse you to the point where you're like, I love this man, and I just saw him do something horribly evil, and I don't know. I think how to deal with that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, man. You read it a lot more recently than I did. It's a lot more fresh in your mind, but I think it was a choice on Cormac and McCarthy. And I don't know if he's ever come out and said it. But I don't think we ever see, or the kid ever described seeing the priest murder.
I don't think
like he's in the gang. He's around. Well, he's around while they're scalping, but I don't think we ever see the priest kill.
Right, because I think I've got. When we get to the end of this, some other theories like maybe he did kill, maybe he didn't.
Sure.
Maybe it was impossible for him to kill anything
because maybe he wasn't real.
Yeah.
No, I think he was 100% real. But anyways, I hear your vote, your nomination. I fully reject it for Willem Dafoe.
Oh, damn.
I think Willem Dafoe, as soon as I heard Tobin in his voice and the way he's described with he talks with this underbite kid, and like this whisper of a warning. I'm just like, Dude, that's Willem Dafoe. Like, that's Willem Dafoe begging Peter Parker to be a better man than him. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, and so I think I can't see anyone else out there that, like, the whole novel, I just saw Willem Dafoe in my head. I see a lot of people online, though, say Bryan Cranston, who, you know, Walter White.
Oh, yeah. No, I was like, yeah.
It's just harder because he's so bald most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, all right, cool. Next character.
Next person up. Okay. Is
the most important character in the whole novel.
Well, we have got one before that.
No, this one is the most important character in the whole novel.
The idiot.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. I was like, all right. Hey, it could be. But so the idiot is, you know, we have about 3/4 of the way through the book, somewhere in there. It starts to blend together, but the 3/4 of the way through the book, we have this scene where in this very small rundown town, there is a guy who keeps a, you know, invalid, for modern times would be a person with special needs, in a cage, and lets people pay to come look at him in a cage.
It's his brother.
And
look at come pay money to look at my special needs brother.
Yeah.
Maybe not even special needs, maybe just schizophrenic. Who knows?
I think it's like, yeah.
Because it says he wasn't always that way. Right? Doesn't it say that? Maybe I'm wrong.
I think that his mom couldn't keep up with taking care of him.
Oh, gotcha.
So once she died, they gave him away. So, I mean, if you got the DSM-5 out, you could probably load him up with a couple hundred things or whatever.
No kidding.
And the likes, but you know,
be careful saying that acronym, bro. You could obsess on people.
The DSM-5.
Yep, you said it again. Be careful, dude.
Sorry, it is the DSM-7 now. By the way,
okay.
They came up with a couple more things in there, surprisingly or not. But they got rid of Asperger's and added like 500 things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so progress. But anyways, this, I'm not going to speak to this as from a modern perspective. I'm just going to talk about it as it was in the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
you have to.
Right, because it's essentially freak show, you know, where you come, pay money, see this thing drooling and crapping on itself and go, oh my God. I don't even know what the draw was necessarily, but I guess
also just the horror of a grown man
yeah.
rubbing shit on himself.
Right. Just like, so to like but that's what it was, a freak show attraction, and he was being exploited by his brother. And interestingly, throughout this, the only person who there's two people who show the idiot any mercy or love or care.
I wouldn't say love, but I'd say care.
Which is I can't remember her name, but it's a lady, Sarah. Is that her name in the?
Sarah B something.
Right. So Sarah does, who seems like an upstanding woman, and then
godly woman, and
then the judge, who saves him from drowning in the river. So because Sarah, are we getting into this later, the whole thing, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fine. Talk about it now.
So, but basically, and this is what goes down is
Sarah Brogdinnis is a Christian woman.
Breaks him out and says, this is unacceptable, takes him out, clothes him. But then that night, he's naked again, runs into the river, starts drowning, and the judge scoops him up and saves him from the river. And from then on, essentially, the idiot is then his pet throughout the rest of the story.
Which, can I just say, is insane. It's absolutely insane when the judge pulls the idiot out of the river, because earlier, maybe a couple chapters before, we see the judge take some of his gold to buy some puppies from some Mexican kids and throws them in the air and shoots them as they land in this river that flows through the town, just to entertain himself for 2 seconds, and then moves on. And the fact that that's the way he just carelessly disregards these things, but somehow he finds value in this thing in the river, and goes in to rescue it rather than just using it as a laughing target practice. Which, I mean, I was again, this was another moment with the idiot where I was offended by the contrary. Like, it wasn't that like the act of it itself was offensive. It's just like, this has offended my expectations.
Right.
My expectations were to just grind my teeth and shake my head as I listened to the judge chuckle and laugh wholeheartedly, firing rounds into the river while the idiot struggles and flails around.
Right. Which, this sounds bad.
Wheels turning, Pat.
Yeah, so once again, speaking to the story, not how I feel about how we treat people who live right now, but could there be a argument to be made about the judge? The most merciless act he could do would be to
keep him alive
in his misery.
Yeah,
and torment.
I think so. Oh, you know? For sure.
So because if there is nothing good in the judge, then would that be to basically keep this
wring out all you can
torment
out of the rag, dude.
Yeah, keep it in torment. Get all the torment you can out of it, and then subject it and enslave it, or what? I don't know. But so that's the idiot. I just wanted to bring that character up because it's a very visceral, interesting character that gets put in there.
I think the imagery though too of like I think the character is super important.
Yeah, because
it is at the peak of the judge's madness, lawlessness, chaos. That the thing that's beside him is not Glanton anymore. It is a feral, wild, just absolute most primal man on a leash. And I think like if we think of the judge, we'll get to all how he's described. If we think of him as in the way he's alluded to in the novel, then of course, what is a type of man on that leash? Well, it's the most primal, ferocious, feral, deranged man. A man that resembles nothing of civilization, right? And like I think that's just kind of like to show like to follow the judge is to be one who surrenders themselves to like the most violent, primal, immediate satisfaction to desires individual. But you were always on that leash. Like you won't be allowed to die. You know what I mean?
It's like Glanton was maybe on the leash.
Glanton was. There's no way the judge would have allowed Glanton to die had he had. I don't think he would have allowed it. I think he would have kept Glanton alive and on a leash for as long as he can. I think the only reason he wasn't able to is because of the circumstances in the novel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, final character, man.
Final character. We're skipping actors on that one.
Oh wait, yeah. Oh no. Jared Leto. Dude, just let him off the leash, dude.
Oh my
God. Figuratively, but put Jared Leto on that leash, dude. You know he's gonna be the best fucking. I'm not saying Jared Leto is an idiot. That's what Pat says. I'm saying that Jared Leto is gonna.
He's a tortured soul.
Yeah, he's a tortured soul, and you tell him like, "Hey, we've given you the role of the idiot in the BloodMeridian movie." Jared Leto is gonna commit. Like Jared Leto is going to literally cover himself in his own shit.
Go full method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just give it to Brad Pitt and let Brad Pitt get like an opportunity he's never had before. Be like, Brad Pitt, like people will come watch this movie to see you be an idiot. And like absolute shock value to the senses.
God, he'd be terrifying. He may never come out.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like you do that movie with Jared Leto as the idiot and like that's his legacy. That's his Heath Ledger Joker.
His coup de grace.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
All right.
So I think we'll go into the next guy, but I want you to do him. I think you have a lot to say about him.
The judge.
I think you have a lot of feelings about him. Judge Holden.
Can you give me the background of like
I will give the like
him as a human, as a man.
Yeah, and you can tell about your feelings about him.
Okay.
And then we can move in because I think it's
I want to know your feelings too.
Oh yeah, for sure. But so the first time we see the judge, he just he's described very specifically as a large, hairless, somewhat pale, big, bright teeth,
albino
man.
Like no eyebrows, right?
No.
Does it say red eyes? I can't remember if it alludes to him having like reddish eyes or not.
I don't know if it does, but he doesn't even need them for like this. His appearance is so just grabs you. And the first time we see him, there's a town hall meeting or a church service going on, and there's a priest in there, and he just walks in and accuses the priest of all these horrible things, and all the people just instantly turn on the priest, and we don't know what really happens of the priest, but you could assume he's either hung or kicked out of town, or
I think he runs away.
He runs out of town. He runs out of town. Yeah. He gets away, and then we see. Next scene is a judge in the bar talking to some guys, having some drinks. They're like, "Man, how did you know all that stuff about him?" He's like, "I never met that guy a day in my life." So we just learned that the judge, in the first encounter we see with the judge, he completely wrecks somebody's life in a few sentences with some extreme accusations and being completely false,
made up on the spot,
bearing false witness to him, and just on the spot, just destroys this guy's life. And so the judge, there's lots of theories about who the judge is, what he is. Throughout the book, we see him be a sadistic killer, an expert in many worldly things, as he's like an anthropologist and a biologist with all these notebooks.
He has so much knowledge.
He just
knows so many languages.
Oh yeah, he can speak to any man, and that's where too. Tobin and the priest says everybody has a story about when they saw him for the first time.
I forget about that.
Every man's seen him somewhere at some point in time, which is very telling about who he may be. And he's kind of an expert in everything he does, and everything he does is just of the world. Whether it's dancing or playing an instrument or being able to draw something, make a sketch or document about an animal, or how he can kill a man, or how he can reason or argue with a man, how he can manipulate and influence somebody. He's just the ultimate being at being an expert in all things of the world. That's what I think about that guy. It's kind of, how he's presented
as a person, as a human.
Yeah.
I think he's debatably. Imagine this idea that just as God has the ability to take the form of man, so does Satan. But unlike God, he's not all-knowing. He's not omnipresent. What's the other one? It's omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent.
All-knowing,
all-present, all...
I'm missing it now.
Yeah, I think omnipresent, all-knowing, everywhere at once. That's what it is. Everywhere at once, knowing everything, and no, that's all present.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. But if Satan was to take this form of a man and able to manifest himself, he might not be all-knowing, but sure, he would know a lot because he's been around for a long time. And he certainly wouldn't be able to be everywhere at once, but he would have quite the presence wherever he was, and many would know him. And I think that is like very much the character of the judge. And it's even in the very like beginning of the book described, like the priest, when the Judge Holden comes and makes these accusations, the priest seems somehow, and the priest, not Tobin, but the priest who's like a nameless character that this judge is making accusations against. He points out and is like, can you not see that is the devil himself, Satan? And it's, you know, like the people don't see it. But this priest seems to have like a fervor of fear of like, my God, that is Satan walked into my tent. And there's several times where we see the judge and his knowledge that he wields seems like knowledge that is outside of what can be attained with the current means of like life expectancy, technology, and time that one has, right? And I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, and I don't know if I want to be fair, because I'm sure there's a really popular Reddit post about this book that mentions it and kind of goes over it, but the judge has parables like Jesus, but his parables are so wicked. And even the language he uses them is wicked and offensive and not remotely resembling the language Christ uses, other than the fact that it's a parable, right? He actively uses demeaning, derogatory slurs when it adds nothing to the parable. And in that, we see that, like you said, he keeps this journal. He's this biologist. He's this geologist. He's this historian. And one thing the judge prides himself on doing is taking the best notes and drawing like immaculate artistic renderings in this notebook of these things he finds, whether they are like literal ancestral stories carved in rock or like cave paintings. Or just beautiful artwork made by these Native Americans or Mesoamericans. He draws them so that way there is a copy of them, a simulation of them that exists in his journal, and then he destroys them. And to me, that is like the most like revealing sign of his despise for mankind and despise for God. And that anytime you find something that's beautiful, that would be that might be, you know, if you were a Christian, you might assign its beauty to God's beauty in creation, like God having a beautiful creative mind to create a world that has so much beauty as a reflection of his glory, right? You might say the blooming of the blossoming of this flower in the desert is resembling God's beauty, or the culture and the way the various cultures design art and jewelry and stories of their own tribes is a reflection of God's ability and desire for people to know him. These cultures want to be known and people to know their stories. And Satan abhors that. And what is what is like a better insult to God than destroying what he's created, and the only form of it existing is Satan's own creation of it, which is these drawings and these notes on what it was and where it was and what it looked like, so that the only way you would know it is if you knew him and if you came to him seeking it. And to me, that is like this like desire to destroy those things, so that way only he has them, and that he doesn't even have them because of course he can't make the similar works. All he can do is mimic it, because
he's not omnipotent.
He's not omnipotent,
which is all powerful.
Yeah. And so with that, I find this illusion of the judge as Satan, as evil incarnate, as like very real. I think it is. Like, I think that is really truly Cormac McCarthy's intention, because even at the end, and we're getting into themes and key points here, right? But like even at the end, the judge seems to have this divine presence that men are incapable of harming him. Like, there's several times where he's got a gun pointed at him, dead to rights, and they cannot follow through and pull the trigger. Whereas they've killed many other men. But the idea of maybe killing something bigger than a man, something greater than a man is, and they come to that realization, is like, it's kind of that idea of like, what if you had always heard this person is Satan, this person's the Antichrist, and you're like, no, he's not. I could point a gun at him, pull the trigger, and he'd die. And then the moment for that to be proven true comes up, and you realize if you pull the trigger and he doesn't die, then surely he is this evil, and surely you are fucked. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like that idea to me is like very powerful, and in that, the final words of the book, outside of the epilogue, the last chapter, is that no matter what, he will keep on dancing. The judge keeps on dancing his dance, and he will always be. And I think there's a transition in the book where he goes from being a physical manifestation of evil as a person to being a psychological manifestation of the evil within one. Right. And we can dive into that too when we get to more of the key points, but I don't know. I would love to know your thoughts on that. I would love to know how you feel about it. I could have just ripped off a bunch of mumbo jumbo, Pat, and I'm okay with that because I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And like, there's a lot of things to dive into about him, right? He's such a large character. Yeah, no, I think like a big part of this book and the way that it's written is even in the way that it's written of not having punctuation, the author's letting us decide what we want about the whole thing. He's like, I don't know who did say that, because you don't know who, like, if it doesn't say such and such said that, you don't know who said it during the conversation. He's like, I don't know who said it. You tell me. And you're like, well, damn it. And so he's leaving. There's a lot up for interpretation throughout just even in the physical way it was written, much less in the story, and then even much, much less in the ideas and themes that he's playing with to construct this narrative. And so, like, I think that in some ways you could argue the judge never even existed physically in this whole book. And that's why no one ever pulled the trigger on him. It's like it was everybody's own struggle with their own evil. Yeah, or you could all the way over to like, that was a physical being, just an evil dude, all the way over to no, that is Satan, and as Satan is not everywhere at once, he's in one place. That's the devil roaming the earth. And the devil hung out with this gang for a period of time. I think too, though, like if you wanted to go with the full analogy of like he was never there at all, and maybe Tobin was never there at all. Yeah. That he's just the manifestation of what everyone's struggling with. And like the reason the kid couldn't pull the trigger when he had him dead to rights, the reason Toadvine doesn't pull the trigger when he has him to dead to rights, is because you can't kill the idea of evil. Right. And the only way to kill it is to like, kill it out of yourself. And even then it's never gone entirely. And so like the idea of like, it wouldn't make sense for the kid to pull the trigger and then the bullet just passed through the judge and nothing happened. Like then it would be real. It'd be spoiled that he is not physical. So, and like, you could argue like there's, I think a strong enough case of obscurity and objectivity and up to interpretation, objectivity and subjectivity, is what I mean to say, in that like you could say that anytime the judge was talking, or anytime someone was arguing with him, or anytime someone was interacting with him or disagreeing with him, it could have been Glanton, and like the kid is just hearing this profound literate speech because the knowledge and the information is so philosophically challenging to him that he hears it in this form. But really it's just Glanton's draw and Glanton's type of language. You know what I mean? And same with Tobin. Tobin could be just simply the whispering voice of like opportunity to do good that some of these men hear. All that said, I think he was real. You know what I mean? I think I think he was both. In a majority of the novel, he was real. Yeah, I think he was really there. And I'd say that he was both. What I would say is he was both
present and also able to be just a part of the internal struggle of a man at a point.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been either, like, you know, he could do both those.
I think, like, someone else said this too, really too, is like, what's more real now today, Hitler or the idea of Hitler?
Oh yeah.
Like, Hitler as the comparison, Hitler as the fear of you becoming Hitler is more real than Hitler. Hitler's dead. Hitler is not real anymore.
Right.
He stopped existing. But the idea of the fear that a leader would become, in essence, as evil and as twisted as Hitler, the fear that you would allow your, you know, biases or, you know, subjective opinions of others to be twisted into straight up, like, just hatred and like despising someone for, you know, simply features that don't really ascribe to character. And all that said, like, I think that's like a very similar thing, is like the idea of Hitler is more real now. The threat of the threat of Hitler is more real now than Hitler. And the same thing for the judge, right? I think at one point he goes from being a physical person to this comparison of one's individual, like, self. Like, I mean, you know, Pat, who do you compare yourself to when you think of like the bad behavior you have? Is there someone you fear becoming? Maybe not Hitler, right? Because, you know, we're far away from having that kind of impact, right? Like, you and I aren't going to be leading nations anytime soon. But is there someone that you could think of? You're like, God, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to become that man. And like, that is the image of evil you see that you fear becoming.
Yeah, I think I see examples of either people I know or people I know of. You know, and I don't want to be like that.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what the judge becomes for the kid. Which, go ahead.
And I think that that's why he is, like, in the beginning of the book, where it starts off with, I think it was Tobin, whoever it was, it said, like, every man has a story of seeing him somewhere. In the beginning, that's where it's like, yeah, he is the devil. He is evil that is known all over for all time and cannot be killed and is undying. And then you have the meat of the book. He is there with them. But then in the last chapter of the book, when he reappears, it's weird because he's seen where the kid, who's now referred to as the man, because it's years down the road. Now he's not a 16-year-old kid. He is a 45-year-old man. I'm going to butcher this, but it's like, and the man saw him on the other side of the bar, surrounded by all types of men. The judge was well dressed, and around him was gamblers, thieves, hunters, skinners. He just named off this big long list of things. But then also there's a sentence too of, like, all of a sudden it throws in this weird sentence of, like, and all the men of the ancient East. It's like, where did that come from? Like, he's looking across the bar, you know, it's like, what's that supposed to mean, you know? Or like the
I think it might. I honestly thought, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're lying to. I think that was an allusion to Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Like, the men of ancient East, that I think it said something that, like, it adds one more line, I think, there about like they rode horses or conquered or something like that.
Right.
But I immediately was like, Genghis.
Because he's playing on, like, here's what's physically there and here's what's actually going on in the...
What's existed for all of history.
Yeah. Just men sitting around evil.
Which... I'll say this, man. When I think of who could do this and pull it off and really have the voice, the stature of the judge, Clancy Brown, dude. Voice of Mr. Krabs. Also the main antagonist in The Highlander. Do you remember The Highlander?
Yeah.
You remember how tall he was with his stapled neck and how bald he was?
I know he's Mr. Krabs.
McLeod. I'll find you, McLeod. Like, he's so terrifying, bro. And I still think he, like, when you see images of him today, just make him bald, bro. That's give him some red contacts.
Yeah,
that to me is without a doubt the Judge.
Because he also has this like ability to be like in like a moth to flame. Like he's like there's good looking parts.
I think
too. Like
the eyes.
Yeah,
I think it's eyes. I think it's eyes that are almost like lulling you in. Like you can tell his eyes are like his eyes with the smile seem like they're trying to reel you in.
Yep. Yeah,
I've also heard people say Dave Bautista, but I just don't think Dave Bautista. He's big, he's bald, and he's got a deep voice.
You like the evil? Do give me puppies. That's more Arnold, but you know, it's kind of like.
I'll say this: I think the issue is that I've seen Dave Bautista, and kind of what I think you're alluding to is like I've seen him be. He's been too much of a comedic relief dumb guy. Which is ironic because I'm saying Mr. Krabs could be the Judge, but I just don't think I've seen Dave Bautista have that presence of command on screen. Right. I think he got close to it in Blade Runner, where like when Ryan Gosling goes to confront him and it's revealed, like you realize pretty quickly, like this guy is not a human. This guy is an android. And Dave Bautista's like cold gentleness in this very dangerous environment where like he could break Ryan Gosling in half. Like I think that is the closest I've seen him get to that kind of presence of command. Yeah. Where like you're kind of afraid of him. You're afraid he's about to explode. And I don't know. I'd be willing to like definitely like give it a shot, you know, especially like with, you know, I know Clancy Brown's getting old, but I still think he could do it because, like, the Judge doesn't need to be athletic. Like, there's no scene where we see the Judge like leaping from rock to rock. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and dude, because I forget he was Captain Hadley in Shawshank.
Yeah,
I mean,
bad man.
Hate that man,
dude. He's so evil.
He makes you hate him so much.
So evil.
Because there is like the problem of being like typecast. Because I do think of like other people too, like one guy popped into my mind. I don't know if he could do it now, but once he's an old man, older, with like Jason Segel.
No way,
dude. But like,
Jason Segel. I was thinking Steven Seagal. No, dude, Jason Segel. He's tall. He's huge, and he's a good actor.
So like that,
he's got a scary smile sometimes.
Kind of like the Bryan Cranston thing we weren't ready for. Malcolm in the Middle's dad in the underwear thing.
Becoming Walter White.
He's Walter White, and you're like, holy my God.
Like I respect him so much.
Yeah. Like I could see like someone like that, just like, because I think that, you know, even like Bryan Cranston typecast now, if you put him as the Judge, people might be kind of like, oh, of course you did that. You tried to do it again.
Because he's bald guy, but he's just not big enough, you know? Right. He's just not big enough of a guy.
Yeah, you got to be ominous.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There's one more, and I'm trying to find the cast for it. I think actually he was alluded to being the Zodiac killer in the Zodiac film. John Carroll Lynch. So look him up real quick, because most people don't know him by his name. But John Carroll Lynch, I've seen as a lot of people said, oh, bald him up, give him the red contacts. He's a tall guy. He's got the soft but demanding voice. What do you think? Did you see him?
I see him now. I think
he could do it, and it would be absolutely like, that's Satan. Like, I don't think any part of like him being the Judge could be believed to be just a man. Like because I don't know if have you seen him in a horror movie? Have you seen him where he's a predator? He's so scary when he is in a scary role, dude.
I see a picture of him right here on American Horror Story, and he looks terrifying. I think he could do it. I think he could. But the Clancy Brown, though, that's the Judge. Right there.
I'm glad you believe in me, bro.
No, it's right there. Like, that's him. They got to get him right now.
Yeah, dude. Especially with the movie and production, like, lock that guy in, bro. Because that is so it. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being one of the Skarsgård brothers, or the dad, because they all love to be scary guys. But I really hope they do Clancy Brown justice and let him have another shot at being absolute evil incarnate. Before we moved on, though, I wanted to, because I just feel like some people probably don't get, if they're listening to this, they don't get the prominence of the judge. And I know I just shared a link with you, send you it in case there's any of the quotes there. But if you have another quote from the judge that you really like, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of like voice it here. But there's this one I have, because it's like, I know we've mentioned how evil he is, but there's things he says that are so enrapturing in philosophy and thought to make a man stop and listen and agree. And the way he posits it is, like, I think very dangerous and tempting to like want to listen more. And so there's this quote. This is from the judge. He says, "That man who sets himself the task of singling out the thread of order from the tapestry will by the decision alone have taken charge of the world. And it is only by such taking charge that he will effect a way to dictate the terms of his own fate." And so to me, he's just like saying, like, the act of trying to find your thread amongst this tapestry that is the world, and find it and find where it's going, where has it already been weaved, is enough. Just to seek it out is enough to then control the world, control the entire tapestry, and decide the fate of it. And I think, like, we could argue that. You could argue that with anybody, but dude, the way he delivers it, the writing, the prose, is so powerful in its philosophy and so tempting. Like, that is a challenge. Like, he's saying this to a group of killers that don't fit into society, and like he's saying this, and to them, I guarantee you, every single one of them felt challenged to find his thread and try to just like take control of the world and take control of his fate. And it's just one of those things where, like, that is the language of a leader, and that is the language of a leader who could very well lead these people into a bad business, right? But like, that language is the language of like people who lead other people, and like, that is dangerous. And I think that's why, like, I want people to understand, like, that quote to me summarizes why the judge is seen by Tobin, why the priest can't see him for objectively evil. You know what I mean? Because he sees this other side of him too. Oh yeah. So I don't know. Is there a quote that you have that you really like, or that you feel like wraps him up?
I think so, but I might close. It's the last line of the book.
Sure.
And maybe we close with it.
Is it a quote from him, or is it a quote about him?
It's a quote about him.
A quote about him.
Not a quote from him, but I don't know if on your stuff, were you getting into the...
I don't care if you take my thunder,
but
man.
I can see were you getting into the war and the analogy of the sports with it.
Well, I think you should play into that too, and speak to it, because I know that was something you spoke on in the past, and I thought you worded it really well.
Well, it's just funny because
that was the thing that I think when you said that, you hadn't read this book.
No,
and it was the thing that made me think, like, bro, you need to read this book.
Yeah, just in case I him. But for a long time now, I've said, I'll back up. I've become pessimistic about sports in general for a lot of reasons I won't go into, because we're already running on this thing. But I think that all sports are just an exercise in warfare. That's what it is. It is man versus man. It is domination. It is you subjecting your power over somebody else and proving that you are better than them at it, and you are dominating them in this whatever arena it is, and you are saying you are lesser, I am greater. That's what sports is. That's what it is. I don't care if you're playing Foursquare or if you're playing the Super Bowl. That's what sports is.
Chess.
Exactly. Yeah, the nerds get in on it too, freaking on the chess game. So it's like and the reason I say that is because I see in modern day we're like wussifying lots of sports, and like all the way from trophy culture over to like being worried about CTE, hey, you should be worried about CTE if your 5-year-old is playing tackle football. But also, if you want to get in the arena and you want to worry about CTE, I think that sports is akin to being a scalp hunter. In a moral space, there's a huge jump between the two. But in a space of what are you actually doing, you're subjugating somebody else under your dominance. And in a culture we now live in where we say all things are equal, all things need to be positive, all things need to be upheld, all things need to have a platform, all things need to be accepted. This sports is a place where like
that dies.
Sports has to die if you want those things to get risen up. But
those things must die if you want sports to be sports.
Exactly, because it's just arm wrestling match. Who's better and who's stronger? And there's no like, oh, you got me this time. No, it's like, you are mine now. I think
your allusion to all sports resembling essentially the ethos of of scalping your enemy. Dude, I think that has been the best sports I've ever played. And I think like the competitive nature of, to me, the competitive nature of like flag football, I get like tackle's fun because you get to tackle, right? But there is something about ripping those flags off and seeing them glisten in the sun, and like the feeling of when it like soars into the air after you yeet it, and you just see it flitter down, and you can see everyone like slowing to a pace. Also with the same, I think of like capture the flag. Like capture the flag to me is one of the most primitive things.
Oh yeah,
that is just like, it has every aspect of war and every aspect of a sport, because it's a team versus a team. There's a defense, there's an offense, and when you lose, it is paraded.
Yeah, it is.
And like, to me, like, I love capture the flag. It is like I don't like it with certain people because I know I will hurt their feelings.
Oh yeah.
And I know I will I'll turn into big war guy.
They wouldn't have lasted in Mexico in 1840.
I don't even mean that. I just mean like I'll just get so competitive and so like aggressive about it that I don't like to play it with a lot of people. But there's some people who are like high school boys.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Capture the flag. Let's go, bud.
Yeah.
Like, it's like something about it's primal.
It's like a rush of drugs when you carry that flag across the line or into the base. Oh, my goodness.
And to quote the judge, this is, a quote from the book. Men are born for games, nothing else. And in war is contained all games, and all games are practice for war. And it's like in that, like, that's why when you said this and you went on this kind of like soapbox a couple of months ago, I was like, dude, like, not that you're Satan, but like he's saying the same thing, all that said, let's take a moment to kind of let people reflect on this before we start breaking down key points of themes and really get into full spoilers of the book. Let's break this thing into a part 2, because this is good enough, I think, for people to at least decide, heckin', man, I want to listen to this book. It's a 13-hour book. If you've listened to this podcast, we're sponsored by Audible. Sign up, get your first month free, and use that first month free credit to get BloodMeridian and buckle up for a ride, and then come back after that, because how long did it take you to listen to it, Pat? 13-hour book?
About a week.
To get through it?
Yeah, so it'll take somebody, a couple days to a couple weeks, depending on your schedule, But yeah, you can knock it out pretty fast, at 13-hour for sure. And I think that also, while we've talked about what happens in the book, we haven't really spoiled the book.
No.
We've told you some plot points, but like,
you're going to forget it all.
Our words are nothing compared to that of the authors,
Cormac McCarthy,
and the world you're going to get sucked into.
Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah, let's do that. Let's break it into 2 parts. We'll leave it here for those who are hooked and now want to read this story. Those who enjoyed reviewing it with us because they've already gone through the journey of the book. Look forward to part 2. But until next time, Kim.
Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.